Hey guys, big show tonight as we bring on co-host Michael Gross to discuss Monday Night Raw in its absolute entirety. We take some deep dives into storylines going on, what it could mean for Fastlane, WrestleMania, and beyond. Let's get it all started right now.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your number one source for the latest in WWE news and straightforward analysis. Are you ready to get this thing going?
Give me a hell yeah! I said give me a hell yeah!
Then let's get this show started right now.
All right, everybody, welcome to the WWE Podcast for this Monday Night Raw review. Recording right now on March 2nd, 2021. Hallelujah, we're in March. And you know, I always look to March for a lot of reasons, right? Warmer weather, especially here in the Northeast United States. I look to it towards spring training for baseball, those of you that care about MLB. It is starting, the spring training games are starting. And yes, WrestleMania season is in full swing. I mean, we are in the thick of it now as the pay-per-view, the final pay-per-view of Fastlane is just a few weeks away, and then it is full steam ahead to WrestleMania as we only have 5 more weeks of Monday Night Raw to go through before we get to WrestleMania 37 in Raymond James Stadium. WWE, to my knowledge, has still not announced whether or not they're going to be having live fans there. I would hope and assume that they are, as we it won't be a moment too soon that we hear and see real people actually in person using their own voices, not pumped in crowd noise, not a digital board, and we may not be critically acclaimed or award winning, but we will be live fans in person, and it's going to be a really fun time when that happens, which assumingly should be sometime this year. If not at WrestleMania, midsummer, at the latest, maybe into the fall. But I think 2021 will finally see a touring WWE back on the road, at least in some capacity. So we're going to get to Monday Night Raw review in just a second. I want to just let you guys know that if you haven't checked out Zach Smith's podcast right now, what are you doing? Go check it out. Subscribe. It is called Random Wrestling. Zach Smith is the host here who covers NXT. So on his Random Wrestling podcast, he also covers other topics other than just NXT. Yes, the NXT show is going to be on that feed, but there's also going to be other shows, and there's one right now that's exclusive that it's not on this feed. So go check out Zach Smith's Random Wrestling podcast that's available anywhere that you can find podcasts. It should be everywhere that this podcast is available. So the other news is, if you haven't heard it already, but she's already announced it, Mimi Burris, who does our week's highs and lows in wrestling, she is going to be now covering AEW for us every single week. So she'll be starting this week. So if you're a fan of Mimi's, I know that you guys love her. We do too. And we're excited to let you know that Mimi will be covering AEW. And really excited for that as our AEW coverage has not been consistent over the last few months, but it will be now that Mimi is taking the baton and running with it with AEW coverage that I'm sure she'll do an excellent job of. So happy to report that. And last thing I'll say, if you want to support the show, you guys know how to do it. Patreon, search for us, you get $1. For $1, you get the entire library ad free, and pretty damn sweet deal, as I always say, because it is, right? Like $1 for no ads. That's not bad. And also, hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating and review anywhere that you can. That's it. Okay, enough of that. How about that? Short and sweet today. And we're going to get to, right now, my conversation with Michael Gross that nearly went 2 hours for Monday Night Raw. Yeah, I know normally my Raw reviews are about an hour. Well, double that tonight, guys. Sit back, relax, or if you're at work, try to pretend you're doing work. Right? Try to pretend you're doing some work, but listen to the show and tune your brain out. Hopefully, I don't want you working with heavy machinery. If you were operating a forklift, of course, pay attention to your job. But if it's a job that you can sit in your cubicle and relax or whatever it may be, then go ahead and do so, because this is a fun conversation with Michael and myself. So I'll be back tomorrow with a dual show, my wrestling nostalgia and then the mailbag. As always, Wednesdays are fun because I get to give you guys 2 shows. So, all right, that's enough. Let's get to Michael and myself. As always, guys, I'll talk to you next time. All right, well, it is time for your Monday Night Raw review. And typically, guys, I don't have a co-host for my Monday Night Raw review, but I couldn't help myself this week. I've got somebody with me that has been waiting for this moment of Bobby Lashley being crowned WWE Champion for so long, as I have, as many of you have been listening as well. And Mr. 144 Captain himself, Michael the Gardner Girls, is here to discuss Monday Night Raw, Bobby Lashley's big win, and a ton of other things. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. Great for you to have me. I've been really, really anticipating this moment that we could talk about this, because the word you and I always use is organic, and this is quite organic, and there's a lot of things we can touch on as far as the build to Bobby Lashley finally being a world champion and how he flushed the former, I guess you want to call him, world champion down the toilet.
It's hard to even say that. You and I were talking about this before we started. Calling the Miz champion even for a week was difficult. I mean, it was painful to have to even fathom that Drew McIntyre was no longer the champion and the Miz was the holder. So how did you deal with this week? Are you okay? Did you have to check yourself into a 4 wins? I mean, what happened?
This was a very depressing week for me. We're talking about, the black paint on the walls, blacking out the curtains, writing that deep meaning poetry, that deep meaningful poetry in black ink on black paper. So you have to hold it under the light to maybe get some reflection. I feel fantastic now that Lashley's the champion, obviously, but it was a rough week, because I thought if they're going into WrestleMania with this with the supposed Bad Bunny storyline, everything else, I just saw this as a train wreck waiting to happen. And beyond that, just I just saw it as more ratings, more of a rating killer, and more of Vince being out of touch and feeding us garbage and trying to tell us it's filet mignon.
Absolutely, and that is exactly what I was concerned about too, is that this was going to be a WrestleMania deal, that they were building to a WrestleMania story, that they were trying to get themselves into a Bad Bunny situation that we all know is eventually going to end up in some kind of tag match where Bad Bunny will come out on top, because WWE 90% of the time does not make celebrities look like fools, even though they should. So, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about the great news here. The news that Bobby Lashley is WWE Champion, which is huge. And in 17 years the guy's been in the business. He has been, in a lot of people's eyes, misused, misbooked, misplaced, underutilized, underestimated. You pick the adjective, and that's how I would think most fans feel about Bobby Lashley. Yes, he's not very good on the mic, but we have MVP to pick up that slack. And we have Bobby Lashley, who should have been crowned many years ago, I think, as WWE Champion. Finally, though, gets that strap, puts it on his shoulder, and is champion. How do you feel?
I'm so over the moon on this. First of all, the guy looks like $1 million. He looks like if you crossed him, he would bite your head off. He looks like he could just reach into your chest and pull your heart out and show it to you just for fun. And when you have a monster like that, and you have a man of his athleticism, of his pedigree with especially with the Bellator wins and the fighting championships, his amateur collegiate background, the guy is a beast. He's an animal, and I don't understand why it took so many years to put the strap on him. I feel so elated, because I felt that this is the push he should have got when he was doing those billionaire versus billionaire battle of the hair garbage matches with Umaga in WWE CW, which you notice when he came out last night, by the way, it was, they forgot to put that he was a 2-time ECW champion on there, but whatever. I'm not a nitpicker. Where are those Impact and Global Force belts too? But anyway, so this is exactly how I feel. First of all, this is way overdue, at least 10 years overdue. Second of all, that was when he had left WWE. That was a dark time in wrestling where things were kind of hodgepodgey. They just went to the PG era, and things were getting really kind of dorky and kind of hard to swallow. It had become the Cena show, and most of your older people from the Ruthless Aggression era, like Rob Van Dam and things, were boiling out. Jeff Hardy, his one-trick pony, kind of same match over and over again, was kind of falling flat. CM Punk was on the rise. There was this weird time where they didn't really know what to do, and the person who was the biggest victim of that, two people, I think, were John Morrison, because obviously he's probably the most underutilized, wasted talent now, and Bobby Lashley. And of course, both went away, sewed up their skills, and reinvented themselves somewhat, and came back. And Bobby Lashley, I think he's going to be, for especially the African-American representation, what Kofi was supposed to be. And before anybody gets up in arms, what I mean is, of course, they waited a long time for a true African-American champion. They always say, well, The Rock wasn't because he's half Samoan. He is also half American, African-American. So yes, he was. Okay. So he would be the first. Kofi, his run was very forgettable and very marred. And by the time he got it, he's lost a step. He's not terrible, but he's not the man he was 10 years prior. The whole thing was see-through. It was just kind of a gimme, obviously, because the whole Mustafa Ali thing and the way it just progressed from there. With Bobby Lashley, we're talking about a 16-year odyssey. We're talking about leaving the company, which nobody knows why, and that's where I was going to sew this up. At that particular time, he left the company. When Brock Lesnar left the company, it's because he was bored of the wrestling, didn't want to travel anymore, and made his money. Bobby Lashley kind of disappeared for a second, then he came back out in Impact and in Bellator. Brock was off the wrestling scene a long time before he had made his appearances in New Japan, and I think doing the Inoki Genome thing too. And so when you look at how long Brock took a break, especially with the Vikings tryout, wasn't it the Vikings?
Yes, it was. Yep, and missed it by one. Yeah.
Yeah, and his attitude trying to fight other players, and then going into UFC, he didn't know what to do, and Bobby Lashley kept in that whole role of being a professional wrestler and honing his skills, getting better. Of course, his mic skills weren't great, but man, his in-ring got better. It wasn't just destroy you. He went from Goldberg-style matches to actually wrestling 10 to 12-minute matches, and that whole stretch in Impact and even that short stint when it was co-recognized as Global Force Wrestling, he became better and better and better. And when he came back, this is the push he should have had. Of course, everybody wants to see, you want to see it, I want to see it, Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. If you believe anybody can beat him and it goes somewhat shoot, or even if Brock Lesnar is going to get color against somebody, it's going to be Bobby Lashley. If you could build Drew McIntyre as fast as you did in the replacement for Roman Reigns, I absolutely believe that this push for Bobby Lashley towards Brock Lesnar could happen, could be built. We can stand underneath the credibility, and we've got a man who had to wait so long, and maybe this whole time from when he's come back has helped that build. And God bless MVP, because that man is manager of the decade. He really is. Paul Heyman can do whatever he does, but also you have Brock Lesnar. You took a guy that was perennially upper mid-card, but had that glass ceiling, and he shattered it. And he shattered it so loud that you can hear it in Calcutta. That's how I feel about Bobby Lashley being the world champion.
Wow, I don't think you leave anything to the imagination. I think I certainly, I don't really know what to say beyond what you have about Bobby Lashley as champion. I will say that as you touched on it briefly with MVP, you really can't underscore enough how big MVP was a part of this, because yes, Bobby Lashley did his part. He looks the part. He is insanely good in the ring for his size. He looks like an absolute just monster of a man, and he is a monster of a man. But for MVP to be there at the right time and to do what they did with the Hurt Business, for MVP to take it where it went and really probably not plan to go, of how successful they would be and how well it would work. Really, without that group, without MVP, I don't think we're talking about WWE Champion Bobby Lashley right now. It is really a credit, of course, to Bobby Lashley and his work ethic and everything, but MVP being there at the right time, at the right place, and his mic skills, picking up that whole group and making Bobby Lashley a part of it was, I don't think we can underscore how important that was. So I guess to your point, though, like Brock Lesnar, I mean, where do they go from here, though? Like, do you see Bobby Lashley facing Brock Lesnar in the near future? Maybe it tempts Brock to come back because he has someone new to dance with. It's not just Drew McIntyre again. Goldberg obviously is gone. He has really nobody left that would make any real sense to have a match or two with other than Bobby Lashley. So what do you think about Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar in the near future, in 2021 at least?
Well, Bobby Lashley has been saying for years, even before he was re-signed by WWE, that his dream match would be against Brock Lesnar, but in a real, actual octagon, either in Bellator or in UFC. I would love to see it. The credibility is right there. It's right in front of us. because you can't discount what Bobby Lashley did on the fact that it was Bellator. Bellator is just as real, and for anybody who doesn't think so, go ahead, step in that octagon with anybody who fights Bellator. Even a person who perennially loses in Bellator is going to whip you 9 times out of 10. Just trust me on this one. This is what people do. Even the losers who fight train all the time to fight. Now, this needs to happen. This is a fresh match for Brock Lesnar. It's something that we've all wanted forever. It just makes the most sense. You've got the similarities. You have the size. Where I think it'll go, unfortunately, I have a bad feeling it's going to be a Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley is what I think WWE thinks that we want or might try to feed us based on how Brock feels about re-signing a contract or getting in the ring, or if he's having fun out on the ranch somewhere hunting. It comes down to Brock Lesnar's whims. So if Brock Lesnar wants to wrestle, we can get this. If Brock Lesnar doesn't want to wrestle, sorry about your luck, guys. We're probably going to get Braun Strowman. And I think that's why we have the Shane O'Mac kind of being the thorn in his side, so they can double book it. If anything happens, we can just fall back on Shane O'Mac versus Braun Strowman, and Bobby Lashley gets Lesnar, which is what we want. And if something falls through, hey, we've got that. We've got Strowman. So I want to see it. I don't want to see it as a rigged MMA fight like they did with the Cain Velasquez thing. That is just pathetic. We will all see through that really bad, and it's going to just cheapen what we think would be an incredible match. And you look back to when Randy Orton had his last match with Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar shot at him at the end and elbowed his head open. Of course, that was scripted, and it's kind of one of those things that Orton did for the people. Okay, I'll take the juice. I'll do it hard way. Much respect to him. Also, wow, they had to staple your head shut. What are you thinking? Hope the payday was worth it. I could see that kind of wrestling match with that kind of result with one of the two, a little bit getting a little color the hard way. I think that's what would make us buy it. But a true wrestling match, not an MMA, not a collegiate style, a pro wrestling match with, joint manipulation, joint locks, some MMA stuff mixed in there. But we do not pay and we do not tune in to see scripted MMA matches, or we'd watch more of Raw Underground, and that went the way to the dinosaur. So give us a wrestling match, give us a great one, give us a little hard way blood, but yes, that is what we need, and that should make Brock Lesnar salivate.
It should, because this is a match. I mean, there really is no better time to do it. WWE Champion Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar. I mean, he has minimized the amount of mileage he's put on his body over the last 10 years by working dates he only wants to work, really only wrestling on pay-per-views, and that's it, since he came back in 2012. So there is no better time to do it. If they don't strike now, I don't know when they're waiting, or when at least Brock's waiting, how many zeros Vince needs to put on that check. I'm sure he will do. It's really up to, does Brock want to do it? It's all up to Brock Lesnar. He holds all the leverage right now in this decision. But I guess my question to you too is, and I don't know if anyone's really discussing this, are you disappointed that this happened for Bobby on a Raw versus on even a Fastlane? I mean, even just to say that it happened on a pay-per-view, or do you not care that it happened on Raw and he's champion either way, so you don't care?
Well, sooner that belt was off of the Miz, the better. So it doesn't bother me that it was on a Raw. In fact, it actually lends more credibility to Raw as far as anything can happen. It's not like I always want a title change on Raw, but I do want something to say. It could be must-see TV, or it could be worth tuning in for. It reminds me of when Jericho won the title for about 30 seconds off of Triple H before they reversed the decision. Those are those moments, especially in those days, there was no DVR. You got to see this. Get in here. Who's in the bathroom? Scream out the results. And so it's not quite to that level because, of course, things get leaked with the internet these days. But I wish – I like it being on Raw. I wish it was in front of a live audience. I really do. I think that's what it needed. And instead of – we need Fastlane as a buffer to build a credible opponent for Bobby Lashley, or to find an opponent for Bobby Lashley. I don't know, aside from Lesnar or trying to push Strowman to the moon at this point, who they could find to take on this monster, unless it's somebody who has the skill set of, say, a Seth Rollins, who's a normal size, but you believe can overtake a monster. So, and there seems to be a shortage on a person in that role, a wrestler in that role. So we need Fastlane as the conduit to WrestleMania, and we need it as the potential. We need it as the place where we are going to find our challenger, and also knock Miz out of what do you call it? Getting a secondary title shot. If he wants that secondary title shot, have it at Fastlane, have him obliterated. Whoever wins whatever mini 6-man scramble or whatever can become the challenger. But yeah, Lashley in front of a live crowd would have been so much better. But Raw, no problem with that. I love it. I'll take it. And you ended that 8 days of doom for me.
8 days of doom and gloom. It was just a dark cloud of misery following us around. And so my response to all this stuff, I would say first that if it's Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley, that certainly overshadows any other matchup that you could want. If anybody doesn't want to see Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar, I mean, I don't know what you're thinking. It's a match that we have not seen. It's a match that should have happened a long time ago, and it's time to do it if Brock is willing to do it. But like you said, I also don't want it like a worked shoot. Like, I don't want, as you said, with Cain Velasquez coming in an embarrassing way. Of course, he's nowhere near the ability of either of those men, but I don't want it to be like they're actually fighting, because we know that they're not. Like, just do a wrestling match. Have a WWE-style match. I'm okay with the physicality being upped, but don't try to tell me that they're going to start doing, UFC type of strikes and things like that. Let's not play that game. So that's one thing I'll say. The other thing, WWE has had 2 WWE title changes on Raw in the last few months. I mean, Drew McIntyre beat Randy Orton a few months ago to recapture the WWE Championship. WWE has almost every single week on both shows seemingly had some kind of championship match, whether it's the Raw Women's Champion, or not the Raw Women's Championship, that's forgotten. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll get there. But rather the Intercontinental Championship, the United States Championship, the Universal Championship was defended on Christmas Day. I mean, WWE has really just thrown away the specialness, the value in having a championship match because of just how many times they've given away on free TV. Now, with all that said, and I do still stand by that 100%, I will say that just the sacrifice of having yet another WWE Championship match on free TV with another title change, I'm willing to take that for The Miz not being champion anymore. There's no question about that. So, I guess if I would like, in a perfect world, I would have liked Bobby Lashley to be crowned at WrestleMania. If he had, gone that road, it would have, to me, been a little more special, especially considering that they are bringing back fans, assumingly, in a very limited capacity at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa this year. So that'll be fun to hear and see. And my last question to you on this is this, because, I mean, we could talk about the Bobby Lashley win forever. We got so much more to get to.
I know.
Is that, as I listen to the pumped-in crowd noise with WWE, that's how I'm gauging what WWE is casting people as, because makes sense. There's no crowd there. They're going to pump in boos for heels and cheers for faces. So I'm listening, and they're still booking Bobby Lashley as a heel. How? I never understood how he's a heel to begin with. He's just a wrecking ball. He doesn't cheat to win. He's just a legitimate badass. So I never understood why they've booked him as a heel at all. I don't get it. But they're still doing that. So which leads me to believe at WrestleMania, if Brock Lesnar is not available or unwilling or just is hiding out in his 8-foot fenced, secured perimeter of a house that he has, I would think that they're probably going to go with Drew versus Bobby Lashley 1-on-1 at WrestleMania. And if that's the case, how do you feel about that? Assuming that is probably the more likely scenario if Brock's not there.
It's also pretty much a foregone conclusion that you could draw to as a step B, because I figured they were going to draw out he versus Sheamus to try to elongate Bobby Lashley's. I think that they wanted to push Bobby Lashley past WrestleMania. That's what I thought prior to all this. But then after McIntyre took out Sheamus, thank God that little thing is over with, because that wasn't as pretty as I thought it would be. It's that I think that's like a plan, not a plan B, but a plan C, because they still don't know what to do with Strowman besides maybe Shane O'Mac, and I still see Strowman as the backup plan for Bobby Lashley. You have to take out an animal with an animal, because Drew is versatile enough to where he can take on somebody who's a little bit smaller, somebody in that Seth Rollins size, like I was talking about. You just have to have somebody with enough credibility that you can believe can take out Drew, or at least poses a threat to him in any way, shape, or form. I could see it happening, and you're probably right. It's probably going to be what they're going to go with. I think it's better for Drew to keep that belt off him just a little bit longer. As silly as it sounds, but the guy's dropped it twice. First of all, the dropping the title to Orton made no sense to me whatsoever. It just dumb. Okay, that was just, to this day, aren't we still going, why did that happen for 1 week and not really ever mentioned again? It's gone. It was here. It's gone. And then, then losing it to The Miz. It was just, it was a miscarriage of justice, to quote Gorilla Monsoon. And so having him lose it twice, and then having such a, really bad title defenses against Goldberg when he looked like Tank Abbott and things like that, it's better for Drew to kind of collect his marbles, to shoot a better game the next time he's out there. So roll over a couple people, roll over some people at Mania, and maybe get a title shot for recapturing at Royal Rumble, because if Bobby Lashley goes against Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania and loses, then we've got a really bad case of hot potato with that belt all year long. And then the meaning of that belt has just kind of been diminished pretty poorly. When you look at your tag champs have held the belts longer, respectively, this year on Raw between the two teams than the consistent reigns of the last couple world champions.
Yeah, certainly. And you and I are not a fan of hot potato. Some people love it because it keeps things fresh and it keeps things new. I think there's an infinite more bigger and heavier downside than there is upside on the whole new champions all the time. I think it's ridiculous. But I think there is a small audience out there that would think that's a good idea. I don't think it is. And actually, if it's the likely scenario of Bobby Lashley versus Drew at WrestleMania, I would actually like Bobby Lashley to retain. I love Drew McIntyre, love what he stands for. He was the Rock of Raw over the pandemic era. He will forever be remembered as the guy that piloted or captained the ship, so to speak, during the uncharted waters of the pandemic and no fans. We'll never forget the WrestleMania when he won it and nobody was cheering in the very small, looked like a garage performance center that he was at, and he should have been at a stadium with 80,000 people celebrating. I mean, so he will forever be remembered as that. And he does have, I think, another or two or three very long championship runs in him. But that said, I want to see what Bobby Lashley's era is. I want to see this guy have a long-standing, 6 to 12 months is a long-standing run in today's definition. I would actually agree more. I love champions that go beyond a year. It doesn't happen very often, but perhaps Bobby Lashley can at least get to 6 months, which would, again, put him past WrestleMania. So my point is, I'm willing and okay with him outright beating Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, clean, no funny business, just a beast versus a Scottish warrior. I'm fine with Bobby Lashley cleanly defeating Drew McIntyre, and then perhaps Brock Lesnar comes out F5s, and then you know who his next opponent is. I don't know. I'm kind of just spitballing, but would you be okay with Bobby Lashley just cleanly beating Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania and retaining the championship? Or would you like to see Drew McIntyre retain and get back to business with him being the champion?
Oh, I'm definitely all for a clean victory, because there's no shame in losing about in any way, shape, or form to a guy who was a dominant fighter in Bellator, a guy that basically slapped Bob Sapp around for fun in a match in Japan. There's no shame in losing to Bobby Lashley cleanly. You just have to watch the finish. Do you go with the Hurt Lock, or do you go with a Dominator? I would say go with the Dominator, just because a pinfall is a lot easier to eat for a top tier babyface than a submission is, and it's getting played out to keep doing the pass out rather than tap out kind of thing. So you don't want to go to that well too often. They've pumped the well one too many times on a lot of things at this point. So, have a clean loss, have it by pinfall. There's no shame in it. And you can work different programs between the two. You could start the Lashley Lesnar if we want. McIntyre can, like I said, he can shoot a better game of marbles if he goes back and collects a few. So let's let him do that. Let's give each guy the credence of where they need to be. McIntyre's come off a run, so he can, I don't want to say elevate somebody else, but by working with other people, they become working in a top tier scenario. And for Lashley, a tainted win, they've already tainted McIntyre's run. Let's not taint Bobby Lashley's, especially if you're going to work him against Lesnar. We have to have that believability and that credence.
And I think that would work against Bobby Lashley's run, because that's not how he won the championship. That's not what got him here, was cheating to win. That's not what the Hurt Business does. That's not what Bobby Lashley does. I think it would go against and eat away at the goodwill that Bobby Lashley has with fans and his character and what he stands for. So I'm 100% on okay, and heels don't always have to cheat to win, by the way. Heels don't always have to do that. They can be nasty and mean and ruthless and just straight out beat you. It doesn't always have to be about the foot on the rope or the pulling of the tights or the referee didn't see it or the rake of the eyes. I mean, go down the list. That doesn't always have to be the case, the low blow, whatever. It can be just a nasty, just disgusting heel that will do anything to win, but he doesn't cheat to win. He's just brutal. And that, I think, is what Bobby Lashley is right now. He's a wrecking ball that doesn't need to cheat to win. And I really hope that when he retains, if he retains, hopefully, my God, I don't see why they wouldn't.
Please.
No. It would be insane this close to WrestleMania to have Bobby Lashley lose. So regardless of what happens at Fastlane, which I think will probably be like a fatal four-way with Sheamus and Miz and Drew and maybe Lashley with Lashley retaining. That's my guess for Fastlane. Then Lashley goes on to main event WrestleMania, and then they have to do some kind of beat the clock challenge to see who faces Lashley at WrestleMania. That's my guess. That's just traditionally what WWE has done. So yeah, Lashley. Look, my point is you don't always need to cheat to win, and I think that would go against his character. But that's my final thoughts on Lashley. And anything else on Lashley, because we do have to move on to some other things that happen that are big ticket.
Just to summarize the whole Bobby Lashley versus The Miz tonight, a few things I just want to point out real quickly is I'm no fashionista, but The Miz was wearing a tuxedo shirt with a regular tie. His tie did not look good. You got to church that up if you're going to be on TV. I didn't like the whole... Okay, The Miz was playing the role of the smarmy heel, and it wasn't too bad, but it was a little over the top with the whole faking the stomach cramps and all that, whatever. And honestly, I really thought the payoff was great with Bobby Lashley winning, because did any of us 3 months ago think that he was going to be a world champion ever? We all wanted it, but we all just kind of thought that those dreams and that ship had sailed right off the edge of the planet. So kudos for them to finally pull the trigger and say, yeah, this is something that we can right the wrongs of the past. So let's do this. And they did it. And I just want to see Bobby Lashley be a dominant champion, just like you do. And I want to see him go over some monsters, not just smaller guys, not just Miz-sized guys. I need to see him cleanly beat these Brock Lesnar. I would like to see him cleanly beat him with a little hard way juice at the end. I would love to see him beat Braun Strowman clean, nothing from the Hurt Business. I would love to see him cleanly beat a Roman Reigns or any other just giant brick or anybody who's booked on that level, because I can't believe that a guy that size, that jacked, is just going to be weak. And so let's make this title reign let's make this be the shark, among a school of mackerel. Let's do this. Let's not have it a dolphin in shark's clothes. Okay, let's really do this.
I like that analogy. That's exactly what it should be with Lashley. And the last thing, I keep saying the last thing, but there's just so much to say with this damn thing. God. The fact that they decided to put, in the first instance, and I know what they were going for to lead us all the way to the main event of Raw, but why would they ever decide to put a main event caliber of a pay-per-view on the 9 o'clock hour of Raw, where they said, oh, okay, here comes Lashley and Miz for the WWE Championship? How the hell is that not main eventing Raw? Like, how is that not main eventing Raw? You could have had all of this wrapped into one, where the main event of Raw is Bobby Lashley versus Miz for the championship, and Miz comes out. He's complaining of cramping. He tries to get out of it. Shane McMahon comes in and says, no, you're not, you're competing, whether or not, if you don't, you're stripped of the championship. And then he gets counted out, and Shane says, no, this is not how it's ending. So they stretched out something that could have been in one match easily over, a few minutes, over 3 hours. It was just weird that they decided to put the championship match if it had gone as planned and they didn't know that all of these shenanigans were coming, why would they put it in the 9 o'clock hour? I'm like, wait, what? And I understand why they did it, because it was just a story to get it to the end, but it was just weird. I'm like, well, again, how would they know, if we're supposed to believe that this is not a produced show, that all these things are going to lead to, well, it's going to be the main event anyway of Raw, because the Miz is going to pull all this stuff. So that was kind of weird to me, but I don't know. I'm good with this. It ultimately leads to Bobby Lashley as WWE Champion. It leads to, it feels like a fresh start. It feels like a real champion is back. And look, I know that there are fans of The Miz out there. I understand that. And I understand why people, I think, are fans of The Miz. I understand that he's good on the mic. He's better than Bobby Lashley is on the mic, but that's all he's better at. For me, The Miz is the same guy he's been since he debuted in WWE, and I'm not kidding. He feels like he has evolved 0%. He looks the same. He talks the same. He wrestles the same. Everything is the same. That's one big part about The Miz that is not, I'm not a big fan of. On top of the fact that you have Morrison, who is just as juvenile as The Miz is, sometimes even worse. But I digress. So, anything else?
I get you, because we can fall down this pit and never get out of it. So, how about I call something out here, if you don't mind?
Go for it.
Okay, so let's talk about the ladies here for a second. First of all, I thought the match of the night was Charlotte and Shayna. Because a lot of tonight's matches, I don't want to say were botched, but kind of sloppy. It's almost like they were pressed for time and everybody had to move a half step quicker, and that led to some really poor execution on certain moves, especially with Damien Priest's match. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Mm-hmm. Right now, so we're getting treated to Charlotte calling out Asuka, but Asuka's injured, which puts her – also, you can stop me at any time, but didn't it seem like the whole theme to this Raw, besides Bobby Lashley winning the championship, is that almost everybody was in a tweener role?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead. Say what you have to say, because this has been on my mind, but because even – some of these people that you've got faces cutting heel promos like Braun Strowman, and then instead of boos and cheers, you're getting this weird muffled roar, like this roar.
Just noise.
And, exactly. It was noise. And Charlotte was getting a lot of that. Now, what I loved about her promo, obviously she is the top of the game in the women's division. She's amazing. And I think if anybody could beat her, it should be Shayna Baszler. I really think Shayna Baszler should and can be and will be a women's champion as a standalone singles competitor. She's just awesome. She's the woman Ronda Rousey was supposed to be in sports entertainment. I saw the promo was great, especially a lot of the people back there want you just to go away. I like that. There was a little tinge of reality heat there, and it wasn't too over the top. In fact, the only thing over the top building into this match was the way that Shayna and Nia Jax were kind of like, when they'd say something and kind of shrug their shoulders and be like, what do you think? What do you think? It was almost like Miz and Morrison-esque, you know? It wasn't quite that corny, but it's like I expect them to be monsters and do a little bit more, not even necessarily monsters, but more just straight jerks, you know, just this is the way it is. We don't like you, da-da-da-da-da. And the people in the back don't like you. More straightforward than kind of playing around. But aside from that, I thought that was a great match. And I love when Nia Jax said that you have the yellow brick road, or what makes you think that you have the yellow brick road
right
going, and you know, I'm a huge Wizard of Oz fan. I don't know if people out there who listen know this, but I'm a huge Wizard of Oz fan. And she said it's lined with poppies. Well, the poppies are the thing that makes you go to sleep. What are you talking about, Nia? Get your facts straight. But anyway, but still, I like the analogy. I knew where she was going with it. I think that the sneak attack beforehand would have merited a DQ no contest before the whole thing started. So that was kind of confusing, just the way that they're kind of bending the rules and making more leniency for that. But I thought the match overall was solid. I want to see more of this heel work. I don't want to see anybody else get their teeth knocked out, but that whole thing with replaying it and showing Asuka losing the tooth and Charlotte paying her respect, but also saying, I'm going to come for it. Whole thing was put together well. The going in, coming out promos were put together well. The match was solid, and I think that's great top tier. It's not exactly upper echelon, but it's top tier booking the way the female stuff should be, or women's division should be, as opposed to earlier, when we had the whole Naomi and Nia Jax. I don't even want to talk about. You're just a couple of fumbles away from another botch. So that's how I felt about the prime situation of the women's the women's division on Raw.
And yeah, that is exactly. It's like grade A. It's like grade A beef versus the beef you don't want to touch, right? To use your food analogy, I mean it's grade A versus the rest. So Charlotte Flair, look, that's a good point that you bring up about the Shayna Baszler's comment that these people in the back wanted you to go away. It is probably true that while Charlotte Flair is well respected, that WWE knows, or she knows, and the women in the back know that when Charlotte Flair comes back from her injury, that she's going to immediately take the spot. She's going to be in multiple segments. She's going to be in a title storyline right away. And that's exactly what happened. So there is a lot of truth in that statement from Shayna Baszler. There's no question about it, which is clearly the line of the entire promo, to me, that stood out, that you pointed out. And I agree that Shayna Baszler is... I think she's really good in the ring. She's decent on the mic when she wants to be. I say she's uneven on the mic. I wouldn't say she's good. I wouldn't say she's bad. I would just say she's kind of like hit and miss with Shayna Baszler on the mic. I think that her being in a tag team with Nia Jax I think it's about time for that to kind of go away.
Yes.
I understand what they've done to women's tag team championships. I respect that. I'm glad that they've at least made them feel somewhat valuable from just a prop from WWEshop.com to actually making them feel something that has some value. And Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, I think unexpectedly, have done a nice job with that. But I think it's time for both women to go their separate ways, especially Shayna. Shayna is meant to be a single star. She doesn't belong in a tag team right now, and there's certainly no shame in breaking up that team. And don't forget, with Rhea Ripley on the way. Rhea Ripley, they keep saying Raw, coming soon, coming soon. I think that could easily be the Monday Night Raw after Fastlane. They typically like to stop, get their storylines straight after the pay-per-view, then we start our new cycle, which in this case will be right to WrestleMania. No more stops, no more pay-per-views. So that's my thinking, is that we have Rhea Ripley get debut on Raw, on the Monday Night Raw after Fastlane, which is, I believe, March 22nd. So that'll give her, if she has a WrestleMania match, assumingly, a few weeks to get an opponent. And it could be Shayna Baszler. I think Shayna Baszler and Rhea Ripley would be a really nice combination. Rhea Ripley coming in as a babyface, assumingly, I think she should be, is the right role. And Charlotte Flair in this weird kind of tweener role, as you mentioned, that did seem to be the theme. Charlotte Flair, you have said it, I've said it many times, and I still stand by it, that she still feels and has felt up to this point always a more natural heel, way more natural. It felt very forced, very robotic when she was a babyface. Anytime, it just is icky. It's like Seth Rollins being a babyface. It's icky. It doesn't feel right. It feels forced. It doesn't feel natural. All that. So Charlotte Flair right now, this is the best version of her babyface character, if we'll call it that she's ever had. And I think it is a lot due to her demeanor, the way she's delivering promos. She's not in a promo voice. Like, it seems as if a lot of men and women have a promo voice. And when they just don't do a promo voice and just talk, like just speak and tell us what they're feeling in their guts and not try to it's like they snap into this mode and you immediately get kind of taken out of the moment because it's very produced. Charlotte, over the last few weeks, especially last week on Raw, talking to her dad, telling him to go home and not try to still be the nature boy on my time. It felt very real. I think there was last week's promo. There was a lot of real stuff last week and this week to some degree as well. So if they're going to keep Charlotte babyface and maybe they turn Asuka heel, which I originally thought was a terrible idea, I'm slowly warming to it if they do that. I'm still weary of Charlotte as a babyface. It still doesn't feel right. But maybe they could do it. Do you think that's a possibility of Asuka turning heel and Charlotte staying face?
Well, they can. It's going to be a lot of damage control and cleanup. You have to get Asuka being more like the Great Muta. which is basically what her character is kind of based off of anyway. But she has to be vicious. You can't have any more of this goofy J-pop dancing around and being happy that someone brought a balloon on the set. You can't do that anymore with her. You can't have the split personality of a submission machine paired with a woman who likes Hello Kitty dolls. You can't do that. So to flip the script on him, to do a double turn, it'd have to be a build in progress. Obviously, with it can really be done. Charlotte, she's a great heel, absolutely great heel. For her to become sympathetic is very difficult. I mean, it's just like Nia Jax said. A lot of those people in the locker room want you to go away because you're Ric Flair's daughter. You're always going to get pushed to the front, and you are the best performer. And for some reason, even though there are other performers who are just about as good, you keep getting the push, keep getting the rub, and yeah, there's dissension and jealousy. So that's always going to be above her head, and that's always going to make her this natural heel. Can we have that forced upon us as the viewer and as the fan or the casual fan to start feeling sympathetic for her if people start abandoning her as her friend or supporting her in any way? So it's going to take more than just a build to WrestleMania to do a double swap. It can be done, but it'll be over the top, and that's what I'm afraid of. So it'll have no credibility, but it can be done. Let me put it that way. It can have no credibility. You can do a double turn, and it can be done. Okay, it can be done as a double. Yeah, I'm tripping over my own words here.
Well, no, I know what you mean.
Listeners. Yeah, it can be done with very little credibility. It can be done with high credibility, but it's going to take longer just because people aren't going to buy into it. And I won't buy into it. You won't buy into it. And Asuka's the one who's going to have the biggest challenge, of course, not using English as her primary language and then trying to transition into being a top-tier competitor who doesn't really speak but has to be vicious is going to be way too hard, way too difficult.
It's not. It's an uphill battle, and maybe they don't go that way, but WWE certainly went that way for 6 years with Roman Reigns. I mean, so you're talking about the argument of going upstream and just go downstream with the current. WWE has shown many times that they just say F you to the fans, and they go, we're doing it this way because we know better, and we're smarter than you. We know what you want more than you know what you want, which is what Vince would say. So I'm with you that we should probably keep it as is. I would let it play out. Like, I wouldn't rant about it. I'd go, okay, let's see what happens. Like we've seen Asuka in this babyface role for a while now, since Money in the Bank, when she just went all tears and I'm your best friend after Becky Lynch announced her pregnancy. Yeah, and she turned babyface because she was sympathetic towards Becky Lynch being pregnant. And then she won the championship at Money in the Bank not knowing it. So there was never a cash-in for the women's championship because the championship was in there, if we all forget that. So Asuka, since then, I think the bigger issue is, as we kind of fantasy book heels and faces, where the hell has the Raw Women's Championship been over the last 3 months or more? It has been in obscurity, and my thought was that they've got nobody in WWE's eyes, not in yours or mine or most fans' eyes, that we don't have anybody for Asuka right now. Let's keep her in a holding pattern until Charlotte gets back, and we're going to pair them up at WrestleMania. It always felt like, especially towards the end, they're just keeping her in this spinning her wheels mode because it's just, let's wait till Charlotte gets back. We don't really know what to do with you, but we know it's going to be you and Charlotte at WrestleMania, so let's not get you in any storylines. It made no sense. Asuka was just obscure. It's just irrelevant. She's been irrelevant. It's insane because of how good Asuka is I shouldn't say on the mic, in the ring. She does have a natural presence to her. She does ooze charisma, all that stuff. And she does have occasionally funny moments on the mic. I'm not going to throw her completely under the bus. But she has been especially the biggest casualty, not only Asuka, the Raw Women's Championship, that has literally been forgotten over the last 3 months. And there's no excuse for that. Because even if they were spinning her wheels, you can get her in a program that's going to last a month, 2 months. Why are we ignoring the Raw Women's Championship? And do you have any idea what has been going on over the last 3 months?
I have absolutely no clue. Usually I've got my finger on the pulse with all the dirt sheets and the websites, but I honestly feel that Vince is looking at his own hand saying, I have nothing in here. Like, I should have a big bucket full of female stars, but I have nothing up to the level of Charlotte Flair. That's why Rhea Ripley, besides the fact that we're going to have new matches on Raw, is more than a breath of fresh air because she's so incredibly talented and she has a poison tongue when it comes to cutting promos. Plus, I wouldn't fight her. I don't know about you. You're bigger than me, but I wouldn't fight her.
No, I wouldn't. She's a badass. Legitimate, yes.
Exactly. So there's so much credibility, so much that she is going to add to this division, and I feel that she is going to be the X factor. I have a really bad feeling that Fastlane is going to have a whole lot of six-pack scrambles and gauntlet matches, and
that's right.
Just the throw the noodles against the wall, pray one sticks kind of thing, and if they do with the females, because they love that six-pack scramble, six-pack challenge, whatever they want to call it, more than likely, if she's not involved, it'll blow my mind, and she should be the one who eventually gets the nod. And you could take Charlotte out in that, because we did have Charlotte versus Asuka before, and WrestleMania, if we keep getting the same things, it's going to be rematch mania, and that originally was the role of SummerSlam, and then SummerSlam became more of the better product. As far as, you never have that SummerSlam moment, do you? No, let's not go there. But it's where, the better wrestling match is, whereas WrestleMania is all about the fake moment that we're told about, and we always have to put over the babyface, unless it's Triple H. So if we can get Rhea Ripley into the situation through one of those avenues, such as a six-pack or a gauntlet or whatever else, then we've got the fresh matchup for Asuka going into WrestleMania. We just have to figure out what to do with Charlotte. Maybe form a new tag team for her to go after Jax and Baszler, but she's going to need a real partner. It can't be like this Lana Naomi thing that makes me want to stab out my eyeballs and cut off my thumbs. I mean, it makes no sense. And I don't look at – I remember Naomi's win at WrestleMania a couple of years ago. I still don't see her as a top-tier performer, let alone anybody who should have won a women's championship, let alone having a WrestleMania moment and winning the championship. She could have built her way up. I never saw it as that. I never saw her as even in the mix. Just because you've been with the company a long time doesn't mean you win a championship. Ask Bob Holly about that.
Sorry.
It's the truth. And Lana, she's better off outside the ring. She is not inside. She is not to be put in that ring. Even if she gets better, on a 1 to 10, that means you have a gust up to 1. Okay, and it's just not her thing. It's not her thing, and I'm not griping. I'm just telling you, some people are not meant for that role. She is better gaining heat on the outside, and now that she's mysteriously kicked her bad habit of using an accent, let's see what she can do with a microphone in her hands. Maybe she could be the next great backstage interviewee, or maybe take the Renee Young route and become a commentary, in segue to commentary. Maybe she has a knack for that, considering the commentary team is usually a revolving door. And that's also one thing I'll quickly sidebar on is, wow, Samoa Joe is really sounding scripted these days. All right, back to the women.
Yeah, I'm going to stop there. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. No, I'll wrap this up with my feelings on it, but I don't see Naomi as a credible person. The only person I see is Rhea Ripley at this point, and bringing Charlotte back now could be a tease, but ultimately I want her to fall short. Rhea Ripley gets the nod. We have something fresher to look forward to. We have time to build it from Fastlane to WrestleMania. We have to really build it. We're going to have Ripley bulldoze over some people. I'm not talking your usual Dana Brooke and whatever else. Unfortunately, I'm talking about people that they see as top tier. Going to have to put Naomi under, going to have to put a few others. And let's just get Rhea Ripley matured into this. In the meantime, we got to find that X factor to help out Charlotte to go after Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, and that way we can tie up our Raw women's scene.
That's a very thorough analysis. I mean, there's so many ways I can go. Your comment about the commentary with Samoa Joe, I will just say, because I could dive into this very deeply, but I'll just scratch the surface, and I know people are big Samoa Joe commentary fans. I am not on that boat. I think he's okay. I could deal without the every time that Drew McIntyre does the Glasgow kiss, he has to say, "Give us a kiss." I could do without, just like you said, kind of those just imported, just no feeling lines. And I know it's not easy. Commentary is very hard. And people think it's easy. It's not. It's really difficult, especially if you have Vince McMahon screaming in your ear every 5 seconds, which I'm sure he does. It's not easy. So I'm giving Samoa Joe, obviously some slack because it's a very difficult profession, more than people realize. But yeah, he feels so produced at times. It's difficult. Maybe he's getting screamed in his ear to say those lines. I don't know. But yeah, I agree. So moving on to the actual product though, Charlotte Flair, well, we all have decided that it's going to be Asuka Charlotte. The thing is, the argument for that is they have a lot of history together. So the argument for them having a WrestleMania match, there's a lot of substance there, because you could say, yes, they faced each other at WrestleMania, but how many years ago was that? 3-4 years ago? Maybe more. No, maybe it was 3-4 years ago that they faced each other. Charlotte broke Asuka's streak. And,
yes.
And just before WrestleMania 35, I brought this up on Sunday night in my weekend review. I said, don't forget, Asuka was the one that lost the SmackDown Women's Championship to Charlotte 3 weeks before WrestleMania 35, which was the first time that the women main evented WrestleMania with Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte.
Yeah.
And nobody ever explained how Charlotte got that championship match 3 weeks before WrestleMania on just a regular SmackDown, simply for, let's get Charlotte in the main event. We just got to stick her in, screw Asuka. And it was just, to me, they should touch on that if they go the road of Charlotte and Asuka at WrestleMania. There's a lot of history, a ton of history. So they have that going for them. And I won't be sad if they go with that. You know what match you're going to get. There's a good story there. But if you want the fresh matchup, you want the more interesting unknown matchup, you bring in Rhea Ripley, as you said, and put her in that championship match with Asuka. However, maybe Charlotte could come in. I wouldn't be surprised if they do a three-way, a fatal or triple threat match at WrestleMania with those three, because they love to just put Charlotte in the main event. That's just what they do. And again, I'm not hating on Charlotte. She's an amazing talent, but they might find a way to put her in either way. However, if I was going to be chosen or forced to pick a match, I would say I'd want Rhea Ripley and Asuka. Because again, it feels like we haven't ever seen that. I know if you watch NXT, you may have, but it's not something we've seen on the main roster. Rhea Ripley's really reinvented herself too. She, like you said, she's really good on the microphone. In the ring, she is legitimate. She is big girl, and I don't mean that in she's fat. I mean it in like muscular, intimidating. Like you said, I would not screw with this girl. At woman, I would not touch her in terms of in a physical altercation. I would instead of the fight, I would flight, right? Like I would yes. choose the flight. I would use my airline miles and I would go. That's what I would do. Nice. Because she would unless I had a steel chair and I hit her from behind and I got the advantage, that's my only shot. But honestly, I'm really excited for Rhea Ripley to be called up, and as you said, it is, I would think they view her as a main eventer. When's the last time we've seen on the women's side, or even on the men's side, any of those those video promos that we get before somebody debuts? When was the last time we saw that? EC3, and we all know how that went. I mean, yeah. So which kind of scares me.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
that's
EC3.
Exactly what I was going to say. Oh no, not Rhea too. Come on.
I know. But at least the thing, no, I don't, and I don't mean that to put a damper on people's expectations. I mean, EC3's video promo, I loved it, but then he gets there and he gets beat by Dean Ambrose and goes, like, he had like 3 matches on Raw and he was gone. But Rhea Ripley, I'm excited. I don't remember the last time they did video promos for women who are coming up to the main roster. You can tell right off the bat, based on their presentation of her before she even gets here on a weekly basis, truly being called up, of what they anticipate her being. They know she's a main event. They know she's going to be a future champion. So I'm, if they go that road, I'm super excited for Rhea Ripley and Asuka at WrestleMania. But Charlotte's there as a possibility too. So.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I love Charlotte Flair. I think she's great. She's extremely talented. But you keep winning, you keep getting pushed to the front, you're going to become the next John Cena, which isn't always a good thing. When people don't want to see you anymore, and you get bathroom break heat. I don't think she'll ever have channel changing heat, but I think she'll get that. Oh, come on, man, her again? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to give us anything new when your wins become a granted of predictability over and over again? Your product becomes stale, and I don't want to see Charlotte be the vessel through which the product becomes stale. It does a great job of doing it on its own with other things, so why add to that mix? Why poison the product anymore? Let her do other things. Let her work different storylines, because that's what a great wrestler does. They don't just work the top of the card. They work all kinds of events, all kinds of storylines and angles. And, I love Ric Flair. I'm a huge Ric Flair fan, my favorite wrestler of all time. And yes, he was on top a lot of times, but when he wasn't on top, he still worked other storylines with other people. And that's what builds you into a great wrestler. And that's what makes you want to be seen, and want to be seen in a main event, not just always in the main event and oh great, a groan.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way I could make that analogy is when WCW pushed Diamond Dallas Page to the moon and made him a world champion, and every match, didn't matter who he was wrestling, Diamond Cutter finisher, Diamond Cutter. And of course we had to be reminded by Shivani and everybody else, Diamond Cutter, you never saw it coming. Of course, we never saw it coming. We never saw it coming. And then people are holding up signs in the audience that say, yawn, Diamond Cutter. And it got to that point where it's like, okay, we know who's going to win. We know what's going to happen. And of course, we're going to be told we never saw it coming. And it became bathroom break or almost channel changing heat. So I don't want to see that. Let's get that fresh. Let's get that Rhea Ripley. And hopefully I wouldn't mind seeing maybe one more call from NXT soon in the women's division. Maybe with Dakota Kai. I would really like to see her come up as long as she's healthy. She still needs a little polish. I think she could have a little polish, especially going into WrestleMania. They're going to have a female version of the Battle Royal, just like the Andre the Giant. So I would like to see her shine in it and eventually segue. She's been down there for a long time, and if she gets her polish on down at the Performance Center, keeps working, I think she should be the next person on a call-up.
Absolutely. No question about that. It doesn't have to be one at a time. You can do two at a time. I think the women's divisions on both ends feel like they need a bit of a kick in the pants. They need a little bit of an injection of new blood. Not overwhelming, but they do feel a little bit kind of like, okay, we've seen almost every matchup that can possibly happen. And I agree. So yes. I do have to say too about the Battle Royals at WrestleMania. I'm kind of back and forth on that, right? Because the Battle Royals at WrestleMania, I'm all for people getting a paycheck, people getting that spotlight. You work all year to be on that show. By the same token, it feels like a participation award. It feels like you didn't have anything going on. WWE didn't put you in a storyline. So even if you win the Battle Royal, I mean, honestly, it means nothing on both ends. I don't care if you win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal or not. I mean, Cesaro's won it. Big Show's won it. I think Braun Strowman won it. I mean, okay, great. But I don't know. It feels a bit of like a participation award rather than actually being a credible and worthy match on WrestleMania, which should be the best of the best. They bill it as the Super Bowl. There's no filler on the Super Bowl. It's the best of the best teams that are there. But I digress. So, okay, I do want to move on, and that is to Randy Orton and the Fiend, which has still unimaginably not appeared on WWE television. And I think it's because a couple of things. Number one, Alexa Bliss is, I think, doing a really, really, really nice job. They're going super dark with pentagrams and stuff, which, again, I mentioned this. I don't care, whatever religion you are, that this is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, like, pentagrams represent demonic stuff. Like, it's bad. And that's just a fact. Whether you believe in that stuff or not, it's true. So with that in mind, you have to remember this is a PG product, and WWE, you could argue that they're diving into some pretty dark stuff given it's PG, on top of the fact that they did a lot of cussing this week. A little bit on a tangent. Yeah. I kept waiting when MVP said "bull." You know what? I was like, did they mean to not bleep that? I had to go back and listen to it 3 times. I'm like, did he actually say that and they let it go? Are they just all of a sudden like he says that? I'm like, I've never heard that not beeped on Raw. Or any WWE programming, maybe a slip on a pay-per-view or two. I've heard, things come through. Then we have Braun Strowman say, I'm going to be really pissed off, and then Charlotte cusses a couple of times, something like all within 20 minutes. I'm like, what just happened here? So that's story number one. But back to my Randy Orton, and I'll let you comment on both of these things. Randy Orton gets tormented again by Alexa Bliss, and she's whispering, "Bring it back." And then a man walked out in a hood, revealing it's Randy Orton. I thought we might get a quick glimpse of the Fiend, like a quick flash of the Fiend, and it was Randy Orton. And he says that the video said that Randy Orton, in his demonic voice or whatever possessed voice he had, was that he would come face to face with everything he's ever done before Orton began choking again. Now, I could be wrong, but if he's going to come face to face with everything he's ever done, does that sound like what John Cena went through last year at a Firefly Funhouse? So could we be going back to the Firefly Funhouse this year? Considering, I mean, that's what Bray Wyatt did to John Cena. That's what the Firefly Funhouse was about. Was really diving into John Cena's sins and what people perceived him as. I mean, you could do a whole thesis, a whole just paper. Essay on what that match was about and the meanings of each scene. So does that mean, number one, Randy Orton could be going back to the Firefly Funhouse? And number two, about the cussing. So go ahead.
Well, there's a couple things I noticed from this whole promo. One, I really don't want to see people puke on TV. It's so different when someone does the mist, because it's like a gelatin or something like that. But someone vomiting and then vomiting like a black material. So come on. I do like that they're going in a darker direction. I like the fact that they're giving us something more that an adult would watch as opposed to childish or severely PG. I have to look at the direction of the pentagram again, because I think Vince's way of getting away with it is
upside down, right? Yeah, that's right.
Upside down versus right side up, which then it's a pentacle.
True. Which
is a symbol of I don't know. I don't read the tarot, but I know it's a different kind of symbol altogether and with a different meaning. Okay. So did you notice when the screen flashed, it said a word real quickly?
I tried to stop it. Yes. I couldn't stop it in time. Yeah.
At first, it looked like it said Dane, and I thought, oh, my dear Lord, are they calling up Killian Dane? But then later on, as I'm watching a promo for WrestleMania, it's the Mania in Mania. It's the white and black Mania. Oh. That's what it looked like to me. So I think that's foreshadowing, if you could catch it fast enough, that we are probably not going to see the Fiend until WrestleMania. That's going to be my bold prediction on this one. But who knows? At Fastlane, we just might see Killian Dane. Now,
what a payoff! Yeah.
Then reason for the ratings: get Killian Dane out here. Which I wouldn't mind, because he working as a crony for the Fiend could be really entertaining and a lot better than the stuff they've got him doing in NXT with Drake Maverick. Okay. I like Randy Orton, getting sick, apparently getting Miz's stomach cramps and getting sick again. I don't like the hokey sickness, voodoo kind of stuff. There's other ways to play it. There's just other ways to do it. Kind of like a he's always watching kind of thing, where something could fall on you or something could bother you. Even if you have a picture in the background fall down, well, did he do it or did a crew member accidentally bump it? You don't know. That's better to create a confusion rather than try to get us to believe that, superpowers are making him ill. So that's where I'm going to go with that. But Alexa Bliss is doing great work. She was meant for this, to play a character. Besides her own natural character and her love of Harley Quinn and being the Harley Quinn style, basically absolutely stunningly beautiful girl that gets her way in and outside the ring, and just hosting a moment of bliss. And she has added depth, and she has added so much depth. We're peeling the onion back. There's a layer after a layer. I love it. Keep it going. Just don't get it too hokey with her. And Randy seeing himself, I didn't like. I really didn't. I wasn't a big fan of that. It could have been somebody else. Or keep the hood or the hooded figure cloaked. That would have done it more justice and lent it more.
Maybe it's the hacker. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, yeah, throw Mustafa Ali under there. No, I don't even know if I would have went that route with it. I didn't really like that. It reminded me of old WCW when only only the fans at home could see the Ultimate Warrior in the mirror or whatever it was. It was just when he was haunting Hogan. It was just dumb stuff that it's beyond breaking the fourth wall. It's like adding a fifth wall no one asked for. So, so it's that kind of thing. Or how about like when Bray Wyatt as the Fiend wrestles and all of a sudden you get the cockroaches on the screen and that kind of stuff I was just never a big fan of. So there's other ways to spin it. I like the direction. I don't like the execution. So that's where I am with that whole thing. But let Alexa Bliss keep playing this role. She's doing a fantastic job. And let her play with the character a little bit more. I want to see if she can bring something out of it aside from what they script her with.
I agree, and you're funny you bring up the cockroach. I mean, I was there in WrestleMania 33 in Orlando. I remember those things appearing on the canvas of the mat, and Randy Orton's acting all. I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. I mean, like it was like maggots and stuff, and it was very, very hokey, as you said, and yeah, I was not a fan of that. But I think that, like you mentioned, though, the Mania thing, I didn't catch because I tried a couple of times and I'm just like, I'm not going to sit here all day and try to stop it exactly, when it flashed. It was really fast, like fractions of a second it was on the screen. And I think, though, that, like you said, the Mania thing makes sense. They've come this far. Like, it's only 5.5 weeks until WrestleMania. They've come this far that I think that they would be remiss if they just didn't go all the way until WrestleMania as a hook for people to get Peacock now, because Peacock will now be, as of March 16th, on no longer just the WWE Network. It's going to be on Peacock. So it's going to, I think, be in part a hook for people to tune into WrestleMania for the first time. You're going to see the Fiend. What's he going to look like? What's his entrance music going to be? What's the match going to be like? I mean, there's a lot of questions and hooks that you could use as in part to sell WrestleMania, which does in part sell the subscription to Peacock and all that. We understand that. So, yeah, I'm a little bit confused about how is she going to bring back the Fiend? I mean, Randy Orton's being possessed. It does make you want to transplant your brain a little bit, and it does take you out of the moment. But I'm not going to rant about it because I think they've done as much as they could do without actually the Fiend being there and building to a match at WrestleMania. That's crazy, right? Like, he hasn't been on TV since their match at TLC in the Inferno match that they had, and he set him on fire, commits, first-degree murder in front of the world, and no one says boo about it. He goes away, and they're using Alexa Bliss as an extension of the Fiend to try to bring him back, to speak through Alexa, to possess her, to somehow create these anomalies in Randy Orton's body. All these things that are, like you said, it is getting a little bit out of hand. It doesn't make me angry. WWE has certainly done much worse, hokiness-wise, production-wise. I'm still all for it. I'm still interested in this match that they're gonna have. But do you have any idea what could the match be? Right? Like, it can't be straight up. They can't go. I mean, you can't do a no DQ match because that's nowhere. That's not even at the level of an Inferno match. What the hell? Like, what's this going to be at WrestleMania? You have any thoughts? House of Horrors? Like, what could it be?
I see the ultimate reversal of fortune. It's no longer a casket match. It's a resurrection match. No, I'm kidding. And, we could have Triple H, go back to a hog pen match. And no, that's not a good idea either. So what I'm thinking here is, first of all, after setting a man on fire and committing murder on television, I do not see any type of match that can really captivate us and make us say, wow, that's where they booked themselves into a corner, and they, this is where less is more. They should have had less so you can build to something that big. Obviously, I didn't like the outcome of that because it's just, I like extreme elements, but not all the time, and I don't like it so extreme that it's like, come on, all right. You burned the guy alive, but I just saw, I don't like that. Now, they could try a Hell in a Cell for the first time ever at WrestleMania, I believe, because I don't think they've ever done a Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania.
Shane Undertaker, WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, yeah.
Okay.
So they've done it, but it's worthy. It's worthy of it, yeah.
That's the only, because unless they go back to the Kane Inferno match, and I thought about that too, which I don't know if they've ever done an Inferno match at WrestleMania. So that I think would be the natural progression. And we also don't know if we're going to get the Fiend or a new version, or if it's going to be Bray Wyatt. So there's also some tangibility that plays into, is it going to be a triple match? Is it going to be one is Bray Wyatt, one is the Fiend, and one is the new entity? Kind of like some of the stuff that Mick Foley would pull. We don't know. So there's different ways, different slants you could put it. Like, he has to wrestle Bray Wyatt in a regular match. Then he has to go back and wrestle, the Fiend in a please no cinematic any style match. And then a new version, the Friend, as I always been pushing for, in an Inferno match. Then again, you have to look at, how do you do the blow off? Wasn't Randy already burned, and that man mysteriously and miraculously healed better than any human being with a facial burn I've ever seen in my life?
I would like to know, he must be indoctrinated with some kind of like superhuman ability. You're right. I mean, he got a fireball blown at his face. He had that face mask the next week, and then had decently done makeup burns on his face, and then he's just normal Randy. Yeah, no scarring, nothing. Yeah.
He must be injected with John Cena's blood.
Yeah, Super Cena blood. Yeah.
I'll give it to Cena. I mean, I don't know anybody who can heal as fast as him, but so I don't know what kind of a match. Besides it has to be Hell in a Cell, unless you try to combine that with elements of an Inferno match, like, a little bit of fire, pyro goes. I just don't want it too hokey. I already am not a fan of, like, say something like the Elimination Chamber, because I think it's too much technology that's involved in a wrestling match. So Hell in a Cell, let's just go with that. But they also have to look at, are they going to try to create Hell in a Cell moments, and who's going to fly off the top? It's like, give me something beautiful inside a Hell in a Cell, but show me why it's Hell in a Cell. Show me that they cannot escape, that they cannot get on top of it. Show me something brutal inside of it. Show me the real hell to Hell in a Cell, and make it memorable. And then that is the blow off, and no more of this, and no more fire, and no more goofiness. Give me 15 minutes to 20 minutes of a solid wrestling match with a spot that we'll always remember, that hasn't been done a million times before in Hell in a Cell, and let it be its own thing, walk away on its own legs, and that be a clip that we can watch for the rest of our lives.
And like you said, it's Hell in a Cell, not Hell out of a Cell. But we've always been conditioned now as fans to expect somebody somehow to escape the cell in a match that's designed to keep people in a cell, because somebody gets injured, the referee has to bring them out. Then all of a sudden the competitors go outside the ring, or one of the walls break in the cell. I mean, there's many, many ways, but I'm all for just a traditional, yes, nobody's escaping this. And by the way, if we're going to do this, we're not doing the stupid red one, right? Like, let's do the original chain link style. Let's not get gimmicky with it. I'm all for this being the blow off. Like you said, though, even though the stipulation, when you think about it, is actually less than an Inferno match, because they started at 100 and are now going backwards, it does make logical sense for them to do this. It's deserving of it. This is when I think Hell in a Cell should be pulled out for programs like this. I think it is worthy of the cell, given what's happened. But I don't like, as you know, with the whole pay-per-view schedule, we've been over that. Like I said, though, and you've said, they've booked themselves into a corner, though, that where do they go next beyond literally trying to kill one another, which we don't want in wrestling. And Randy setting the Fiend on fire, I understand that the storyline has, I think, benefited from setting the Fiend on fire and the Fiend disappearing. But where do you go from this? When are you going to bring knives and guns in and start, try to shoot and stab each other? I mean, like, that's actually where we're at, is them trying to commit murder, like actual murder on TV. Like, I mean, like, they have gotten to that point. If you were going to do this in a natural progression, that's the only place left to go, is extreme violence like that. Obviously, they're not doing that. So they have to scale it back, and we're going to have to just accept it, and we will, because it'd be preposterous for them to go anywhere else. And so Hell in a Cell makes total sense. I would think that the Fiend is victorious, especially given that he's going to be returning at WrestleMania, and that Randy Orton will be the victim of this after setting the Fiend on fire. I just don't know what happens to Randy Orton after this. Does he get set on fire in some way? Does he? I don't know. Like, Randy Orton can't just take a loss. That's not going to be good enough for the Fiend. So I would also like to know how the Fiend's coming back. Does Alexa just do a seance? Does she I don't know. Like, I'd love to know how the Fiend gets resurrected, if they ever tell that piece of it, or if she just sits around in the pentagram and just sprinkles dust and says dust to dust, ashes to ashes, and just says these generic things, and he magically appears. Maybe they won't even explain it. But this thing has, again, you can't dig too deep. You can't go below surface level without seeing massive holes in the story. But I'm okay with it. I'm not angry about it because Randy Orton's very good. The Fiend character is very good. Alexa Bliss has been outstanding. So despite the insane plot holes and just incredible incompetence you have to have this be a believable story, I'm invested in it. I want to see the outcome of it, and that's ultimately what matters.
Well, here's the only thing, and I figured this out because you're asking how do we bring him back, and it's simple. You pick up the phone, you call Mordecai. He's not doing anything. He'll resurrect him just a couple seconds. He had that holy symbol. He trudged out to the Mordecai. Come on, Mordecai.
If you guys don't know who Mordecai is, please YouTube him. Yes. He
was supposed to be the third brother in of the Brothers of Destruction, and that whole thing blew up in their face and came back years later in the WWE CW debacle known as Kevin Thorne. But, I'm sure Mordecai's not doing anything, probably kicking some cans around the backyard. Call old Kevin, that's his real name, and be like, Kevin, come on, man, I need you, buddy. We need to get out the old white powder, We're going to need you to look like the Quaker Oats guy one more time. But yeah, I don't know how they're going to bring him back, and I'm very invested in seeing what the resurrection story piece is going to be. I think that one is going to be a groaner, or it's going to be okay, clever. I think more or less she's going to resurrect him through some kind of, get Mordecai and Papa Shango together, and they do some kind of. Who else can we throw? The Boogeyman, and or because it's his first year retired. What if it was Hell in the Cell and the Undertaker resurrects him?
Because gosh.
They can't leave well enough alone. So they know that the second they don't sign him for something, the Big Show's proof that you go walking somewhere else for a payday. Now maybe not Undertaker. I think he has too much pride. But hey, he's not going to wrestle. But we have an appearance by the Undertaker, and he raises the Fiend from the depths of hell.
That's right. That's very true. God. Oh my gosh, the images of this, like you said, this could be like you said, you could say clever. I'd be like, okay, I'll go with that. And it's all going to be implausible, but that's what pro wrestling is. But at least you could go, okay, this makes sense given the story, or it could be just completely like eye rolling, and we can be saying out loud to ourselves as we watch it, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, it could be one of those. I think it's going to be one of those, and only one of those. I don't think it'll be anything in the middle. Hell, maybe they should just do a Punjabi prison match or something. I don't know.
No. I am going to give you the last idea I have for the resurrection of the Fiend, and you heard it here first. WWE Creative, I hope you're listening. He uses the mandible claw because it's an extension of his whole body, because he's the grown-up child of Mark Henry.
Oh, no. Oh, the Mark Henry. No.
He is the grown-up child. That hand has grown a body.
Oh,
and that
God.
is how he was
they did bring the hand back, I think, on a Raw 1000 or Raw something. They did.
God-awful.
Oh, God. Which, by the way, guys, I did some math, and Raw 1500 is 51 weeks away. So it's,
oh, dear Lord.
It's in 2022, but it would be late February of 2022 that Raw 1500 is going to be coming out. So they're going to be doing a massive show at that point, too. So, yep. Okay. On to something a little less, I guess, newsworthy, but worth talking about because I know that you wanted to as well. Damien Priest and Elias. The whole Bad Bunny thing, you and I could sit here and destroy for hours because it's just an embarrassment to wrestling. Most celebrity agreements or appearances in WWE, especially when they're long-term, are usually embarrassingly bad. There are some exceptions, of course, and I think one of them is Floyd Money Mayweather, which actually at WrestleMania 24, I think it was, in Orlando, was better than advertised, at least in my mind. That is an exception to the rule, but more than not, the celebrity interactions and agreements are just bad for wrestling. But in this match, Damien Priest beats Elias as Damien Priest just somehow continues to get booked as a babyface. I don't understand it. I don't know how Bad Bunny's a babyface. Elias and Jackson Riker are just, I guess, brothers from another mother. I mean, because they dress alike, they look alike, and we get another Elias loss, another Elias interruption, which just has been formulaic for years now. Botches in this match. It was a little bit tough.
Wow.
Go ahead and take this.
All right. I'm going to start out with a couple of things. First of all, it was a very poorly put together match, poorly executed match. I don't know what was going on because I've been watching Damien Priest for many years, back to his Ring of Honor days as Punishment Martinez, and he was never like super great in the ring, but he really was polishing up down in NXT, and the match was botch-tastic. First of all, why do we have so many wrestlers wrestling in street clothes? That's getting really old. It works for one or two characters. It doesn't work for everybody. I don't understand why Elias, another case that tweening. Is he a face? Is he a heel? He just wants to make a song with you. He's not breaking guitars over people's heads. Jackson Riker, the former gunner in TNA, doesn't know what he's doing at all because his days as a forgotten son is now days as a filthy groupie, and he seems to be anti-productive all the way around. It makes no sense. Where are the 24/7 jobbers to chase down Bad Bunny? Why is Bad Bunny on my television screen? I could do a lot of these questions, but I'm not going to bash Bad Bunny because he can't help the fact that he's getting a payday to hold a belt. And I don't understand why the word no in Spanish is the same as no in English, but he has to say a whole sentence for Damien Priest to translate. Because, I took a year of Spanish in 9th grade. I don't want to brag. And I just don't get it. I also understand. I get the fact that Damien Priest is Puerto Rican, and so is Bad Bunny, but I don't understand how he went from a somewhat dark character and his name appears in flames like Aleister Black's used to. Speaking of which, I wonder how he's doing these days. He's probably hanging out with the Raw Women's Championship. How he went to all of a sudden now he has the Puerto Rican flag on his very close to street clothes looking tights. But I'll get down to it. They're supposed to be building Bunny and Priest for something towards WrestleMania, and if it's going to be the Miz thing, then they took a step back this week because this match really went nowhere. All it did was ultimately hurt Elias a little bit more. It also adds a lot of confusion as to whether he's a face or a heel. It also adds a lot of confusion whether we should even care if Jackson Riker is at ringside, alive, or anything. But more than anything, I really wish this match could have at least been tolerable. It was very botch-tastic. In my notes here, what was that movie? Had the arrow, I have it here. The roll-up was really sloppy. The one where he got him rolled up, and then he had to reposition himself. The ref could have counted to like 5 while he was doing that. Then that broken arrow was just really sloppy looking. And it was also during this match that I noticed that Samoa Joe was being very, very scripted. And I just think it's hilarious how Damien Priest is getting the celebrity push, and he looks exactly the same as Baron Corbin when he first came in, Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre. Aleister Black was like a miniature version of all of them. And you say Vince doesn't have a style, and the key remaining factor is he screwed up with every one of these guys at first before they could be pushed properly. Well, except with the exception of Corbin, who really they screwed up so much it's going to be at least another year before he can recover fully. This whole thing was just it wasn't terrible. It just it was definitely a bathroom segment, and it was a time filler and served no purpose. That's where I am with that. And where were my 24/7 jobbers? That's right, they were in the lumberjack match.
Well, they got to come down single file. It has to be led by Akira Tozawa. I mean, so maybe they weren't lined up properly, single file in Gorilla. I mean, maybe that's the problem. I am not a big Bunny fan, Bad Bunny fan. I didn't even know who he was. Maybe that's because I don't listen to the music that he produces. I don't know what it is. I mean, I just don't care about Bad Bunny at all. I mean, none at all. And I know that they're going to make him look like $1 million at WrestleMania, while they'll make whoever he faces in a tag team match presumably look like a total fool. I'm just not a fan of this whole thing at all. And Elias, he's flipped almost as many times as the Big Show from babyface to heel. Like he's on pace. He's on pace to catch the Big Show throughout his career. There's no question about it. They just don't know what to do with Elias. They have no idea. I'm an Elias fan. I watch when he's on the mic and when he's on TV. I don't think Elias himself is a bathroom break. I like that he's being teamed with Jackson Riker. At least he has something different a little bit. And Jackson Riker, who was in obscurity, is at least getting the rub from Elias for whatever that's worth. But they just don't know what to do with Elias. They put him out there. He sings a song that it's going to get interrupted. It's almost every single time, probably high 90% of the time, he gets interrupted by somebody, and it's just so predictable. It's formulaic. Elias, like you said, wrestling in street clothes. I don't know. Like you said, I'm not really a fan of that either. Like I don't know. So. All right. Well, I do want to move on here just so we cover what happened on Raw. The Tag Team Championship match, the Raw Tag Team Championship match, the Hurt Business defeats Braun Strowman and Adam Pearce after Braun Strowman did get Shelton Benjamin down with his finish of the running power slam. Shane tells Braun Strowman to tag in Adam Pearce, and Adam Pearce comes in, goes for the pinfall, but then gets reversed into a roll-up by Shelton Benjamin and pins Pearce. Braun Strowman loses his mind, threatens Shane, which, as you and I and most fans are speculating, somehow we're going to get to a Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon match at WrestleMania. So, that may or may not happen, but it looks like right now that's where they're going. What did you think of this match, and what do you think about the WrestleMania implications here for Braun and Adam Pearce, and Shane?
Well, it's the Big Stro. Okay. Do you like shoulder tackles? Then you'll love this match. Come on down, kids. Plunk your money down so you can see every shoulder tackle known to man. All I got to say is Braun Strowman has really bad ring rust. Very, very incredibly bad ring rust. Again, another guy who's wrestling in street clothes. Why? In fact, he's wrestling in tack gear. Adam Scherr, the real man underneath all that, Braun Strowman, has never served in the military. I don't get the tack gear thing. It's just, it doesn't fit his character. Get the guy something to wear, something realistic, okay? It just nothing. The guy was an amateur weightlifter champion. For God's sakes, you can go with something better for him to wear. The match was terrible. Well, it was terribly slow and plodding. I think Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin proved why they are tag champions once again, because even in limited spots of okay, let me put it this way. They could find ways to shine in limited small spots of both offense and selling. They sell so great. In fact, Cedric Alexander is one of the best people for selling, sans Dolph Ziggler and the whole company. And Shelton Benjamin, his athleticism at his age is just freakish. And watching him create a fluid motion, whether he's selling or trying to get in some offense, is just poetry in motion. You see a team that acts as a team and does a really great job of making Strowman look like $1 million. And I'm not saying Strowman's terrible, but he has some definite ring rust going on. He definitely needs to update his look. Adam Pearce, this is the thing that gets me. People don't realize, and I've said it once, and I've said it a million times. At one point, the two biggest indie wrestlers in the world were Adam Pearce and Nigel McGuinness. Of course, Nigel got the Hep C and couldn't kick it and had to retire. Nigel McGuinness just went on to becoming a producer, and now he's on stage personality. If people actually saw what Adam Pearce could do, I even believe he's definitely out of shape compared to, but I'm wondering if his on-air personality or persona is so that he can actually have one WWE match. I'm wondering if they're slowly getting him back into shape so he can have one match, because the guy can wrestle. And if just get on YouTube, look up Adam Pearce in his prime, in the old Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Wrestle Circus, so on and so forth, indies. The guy is amazing. But it's silly. So the booking on this is we're going to get that retread of Shane versus somebody incredibly large. We don't want to see this, but I see another steel cage match of some sort. If you're already going to have Hell in the Cell, you might as well throw these two chuckleheads in it. So Strowman versus Shane, or are they going to build a Strowman versus Pearce kind of like with Pierce being the stooge that turns on Shane. I can see that happening too, depending on what's going to happen with the main world title situation. That's kind of like where it's going. I also want to see, because this was somewhat of a filler, it only serves the purpose that this match served was to further where you're going to go with Strowman and Shane. Is Strowman going to go into the world title? Is Shane going to face whatever? It did nothing for the tag team championship. And you never put the tag champs on or any championship belt on without having some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. Where's it going for them? You want them to look strong and not like they were going to drop it to a man who won the title with a 4-year-old or a 4th grader. And it's sad that you make Adam Pearce look that bad, who was, like I said, in his prior years a phenom, when the guy won, when Strowman won a championship with a 10-year-old. So I wasn't a fan of the outcome. Well, I was a fan of the tag champs winning. I wasn't a fan of them looking as bad as they were, but kudos to them for making it work in that ring. So that's where I am with this whole situation. There was just nothing for the tag champs to further their storylines and give them any kind of momentum. I know there's the dreaded M word going into Fastlane and ultimately WrestleMania.
Sometimes it's unavoidable saying that word. I hate it now because WWE, they always talk about how important it is, and we all know it means absolutely nothing. I mean, it's just, I don't know what it is about that word that they have an obsession with, or a quota to meet every show. But this match was all about, had nothing to do with the Raw Tag Team Championship, had nothing to do with the Hurt Business, really had nothing to not really do with Adam Pearce. This seemed to be focused on Braun and Shane McMahon. That is the core of this purpose of this segment. It was getting to them having some kind of program together. Assumingly, you said it, like Shane versus another big man at WrestleMania. That seems like what's going to happen, where Shane plays the heel. You would assume maybe Braun Strowman will run out of tight shirts to wear by then. I don't know. It is weird. His gear is weird. I agree. I know that, he did change because of the Fiend's match, and everybody had changed from the Fiend match, and maybe he can face the Fiend again to change to something else. I mean, if that's what's going to get him a different change of attire, maybe we can have a Fiend and Strowman match, next week on Raw, just so we can get a different outfit. I don't know, but this is going to get, again, when you look at Braun Strowman's WrestleMania career, like what he's achieved at WrestleMania, it hasn't exactly been the part of his resume that I would include. Because, I mean, he's faced, a 10-year or tag with a 10-year-old. He's won the Honor of the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which doesn't say a whole lot. He's been a part of the Wyatt family, which was successful, but nothing really stand-out-ish for him at WrestleMania. And I could be wrong. Maybe I'm missing maybe like an Intercontinental Championship win. I'm trying to remember if he did something big at WrestleMania that you're like, oh my God, this is it for him. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe I'm missing it, but again, this seems like another WrestleMania comes around and Braun Strowman's in a match that is just a spectacle match. It's a match that is inconsequential because it doesn't do anything to have him further, if you're a Braun Strowman fan, that is, further him being in a championship opportunity, in a singles championship match anyway. So it's another one of those kind of joke matches for Braun Strowman, in which he seems to just perennially do every single WrestleMania. So, all right. Any comments left on this? As we all know, we're probably getting to Shane and Strowman.
Just on my way to Shane and Strowman, I really think that Strowman's taken over that role from the Big Show of who's going to be the celebrity minus the Bad Bunny situation, who's going to be the, let's bring in Aki Bono situation that nobody wants to see anymore. They've already put a Universal title on him, so he's always going to be either above the title or in the title picture or that top tier. The problem is you built this monster up so much, and now that they finally got rid of Lars Sullivan, because it can't be one of our shows without me mentioning him once.
Oh, you love that, yes.
Well, who's big enough? I mean, because you look back into the old Wyatt family, all those guys were ginormous. All those guys were huge. So who's a person who's physically big enough, or a person who's mid-sized like a Seth Rollins, who has that momentum that you can believe will be Strowman or be a challenge for him at WrestleMania? Right now they have nobody. So all that leaves is Shane O'Mac for the match. Unfortunately, that's where it is. I mean, we're going to see. Barring the world title situation, it's Shane O'Mac.
Yeah, and in all likelihood, with 5 weeks left to go to WrestleMania, I think that is a most likely scenario. So get ready, guys. We're going to see a lot of shuffling of the feet, bad punches. Shane jumping from high things, and Braun Strowman probably getting the victory, and we all go home. I mean, like that's what it's going to be. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's just kind of like, maybe they'll change our minds over the next 5 weeks. I have my doubts. Okay. Just a couple more matches here that happened on Raw. Of course, we got Nia Jax defeating Naomi by pinfall after a chokeslam powerbomb. I really don't know how to analyze this. I don't have a whole lot to say about Nia Jax beating Naomi. Do you? I honestly don't even know what to make of this. I mean,
just filler. It was definitely a time killer. I love the chokeslam powerbomb. I just want somebody who's safer to use it. I always thought it's. I mean, honestly, I really feel that should be Braun Strowman's finisher. It makes the most sense. You're gonna get these hands because the power slam I just don't buy into. Even though if he did it to me, he'd probably split me in two parts, I should say. I really don't buy into that finisher with him. For him, that chokeslam powerbomb would work. He's that size. He could do it to. If there's anybody he couldn't do it to, it would blow my mind. Maybe Big E because of Big E or Keith Lee. Speaking of which, where the heck is he? They're unique builds. Because of the way they're built, he might not be able to do it to them. But then you can always fall back on the running power slam or use it from a corner situation. But it's a great finish wasted on a person who's going to probably break someone's neck or back with the move. But it's filler, and it's all to try to build momentum towards this tag match that we're going to have at Fastlane that I hope doesn't last any more than a minute and a half. But yeah, it was definitely a go check and see if your Pop-Tarts are done kind of moment.
Now you're making me want one. Dang, I think
sorry,
no, for real.
You know who you got on the line here.
I know these food references. I mean, I make sure I eat, before I come on the show sometimes. And man, I think I do have a Pop-Tart sitting upstairs.
Yes.
Damn. Well, I agree, and it's scary too because. Look, Nia Jax, I'm not a fan of Nia Jax. I mean, I've seen her post some things on Twitter I'm not a fan of on a personal level. I respect her as a performer in some ways, but she does hurt a lot of freaking people. She does hurt people, of course not on purpose. It's not what I'm insinuating at all. I'm sure she probably is a good person, and she does not mean harm. That would be foolish for her to be purposefully hurting her opponents. I mean, it would be career suicide. But that being said, like you mentioned with her finish, it does and should probably belong to somebody else because what's going to happen is, like you said, she's going to injure somebody, and then that move will be forever banned, and it's going to be looked at as the move is the problem, not Nia Jax, or at least that's what WWE will do, and they'll continue to just have Nia Jax on TV. And look, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Nia Jax is still a little bit green. It takes a long time to get this profession down. I'm not a fan that thinks this is easy. You can pick it up. You should know by now. She should at least be fundamentally sound. That's the problem. And when she has her track record of what she does, again, she's a much larger woman dealing with women half her size. That does, as you and I talked before, this does run the risk of potentially injuring somebody you're working with because just basic science that you have more mass, you have less margin for error, you could potentially injure your opponents more. So unfortunately, I could see that happening where she inadvertently injured somebody with that move, and then the move's gone because somebody got hurt with it. So, yeah. Any other thoughts before we get to Riddle and his matches on Raw?
No, yeah. I mean, I think we're just both in agreement that Nia doesn't go into business for herself. She just is the victim of poor execution. And I'm no professional wrestler, but I'm also not going to try to do a chokeslam powerbomb on anybody anytime soon. Even if I was, I think I'd have somebody a bit more seasoned or has a better track record for a move of that caliber, especially if I had a history of inadvertently injuring people. So, let's go ahead and move on from this one.
That sounds good. Riddle and Lucha House Party defeat Retribution via pinfall. Grand Metalik hit an elbow drop on Slapjack. Again, I don't even know what to say about this. The new United States champion that was crowned is really now kind of buried on Raw here, it seems like. I know we also got a really scary botch on Raw with Mustafa Ali and Riddle. I've been trying to pull it up. I cannot find footage of it for some reason. I saw pictures. I saw the description, So maybe you can describe it a little better than maybe some people that didn't see it. The reason I didn't see it is it's not on the Hulu version of Raw. Those that watch Hulu are probably like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Mustafa Ali versus Riddle? And what botch?" It's not there. So maybe you can go ahead and describe what the hell happened here.
Okay, I watched the Hulu version as you did, but then I go back to YouTube and I pull up the matches I didn't see, like Naomi and Nia Jax, and I couldn't find Matt Riddle and Lucha House Party's match or his match against Mustafa Ali, but I could find a quick clip of it on Daily Motion. It might be down by now, but you can still sometimes find like small things on Daily Motion. It was about a 5-second, if that clip. I think it was Daily Motion. Pretty positive it was Daily Motion. Anyway, and it was like a backstabber, but it was off kilter. And it was quick enough to where I just wanted to get notes on it. But I did a lot of just reading the reviews and stuff like that after that. I haven't looked it up since then because I watched a lot of this earlier today. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's like I got to see it like once, twice. Then I was like, all right, let me move on to other stuff. Let me find things I need to do. From what I understand, everybody's okay. It's just a botched. It's just one of those things. As far as Matt Riddle's push being kind of stymied, it really is. I think that now that they know he embraces the stoner lifestyle, it's gone Rob Van Dam, not 2.0. It's like Rob Van Dam times 10. Like, he's too stoned to do anything right, or he just doesn't care. And that's not how you paint a champion, especially a guy of his caliber and the way he can fight. Please, folks, go to YouTube, go to your Daily Motion, go to whatever peer-to-peer video sharing websites that you can find, and just look up his fights. The guy can fight. He is in that conversation. It's just that he's not a super heavyweight. He is probably 210, 215. He's not the 260 of Brock Lesnar or anybody else. He should not be just brewing it everywhere, because you're killing the guy's career. And to tag with Lucha House Party, I mean, they did put Lars Sullivan on the shelf, but I mean, let's be honest, it's almost like career suicide, right? That's the way I see it. When you're tagging with the curtain jerkers, the perennial curtain jerkers, and people who are showcased almost primarily on 205 Live and float back and forth between the main roster and NXT, it doesn't look real promising for the elongation of your career.
No, it doesn't. And Matt Riddle is a guy that, like you said, does have the credentials when you look at what he's done. And like you said, I encourage anyone to go back and see Matt Riddle prior to coming into WWE. This guy is legitimate. He has the credentials. And he shows it in the ring. I love Matt Riddle's in-ring style. I've always said that on this show, and you have as well, that I don't have anything wrong with him in ring. I think he does have a bright future. It all comes down to his character and how he's portrayed. Like you said, the stoner, cool, man, whatever, bro, I don't care, bro, nothing bothers me, bro, everything's bro nuts, bro, like everything has to be bro. I don't know why it has to be that way. It's overused, over-marketed. It's gotten to the point of obnoxious how many times he has to bring up bro nuts. I cringe when I see him on a microphone now, because I know that I want to like him as a personality wise. I want to get into his character, and then I hear him speak in this kind of like, he just got done smoking and he's staring at you with those bloodshot eyes, like, and talking about the universe and giving people weird nicknames and all these things that are just childish, and it makes me hate watching the show for those moments that he's talking. And again, it has nothing to do with his in-ring. I respect his in-ring a lot. I love his physical style. It's a very physical style. I love that. It's just that, man, oh man, he is neutralized by his character. I'm not a fan of his character at all. And I know that some people do. Some people love the chilled out, whatever, man, nothing bothers me. But I can't get behind somebody that can't get behind themselves. I can't get behind somebody that's just like, if I lose, I lose. It's whatever, bro. That to me, then why should I care if you lose? If you don't care, why should I? I mean, so I'm not a fan of that. I know what they're going for, but it's just not my thing. So, you?
Well, it's the case in point with CJ Parker in NXT, versus his character of Juice Robinson in New Japan. He was supposed, they took his idea of being, like natural and kind of being like a modern day nomad and being all organic, as far as like dietary and things like that, like vegetarian, so on and so forth. Okay. The character is supposed to be a modern day nomad, but NXT turned it into a hippie.
Yeah.
Hippies are peace loving, so I never understood a wrestling hippie. You can't go there. It's oxymoronic. Okay, so it's the same thing with Matt Riddle. Okay, yeah, he likes to smoke up. Well, I mean, I've heard that I heard Rasheed Wallace liked to smoke up too. In fact, I think he caught a charge on it when he was part of the Jailblazers in Portland. He was also a guy who would slug you and beat you down on the court physically. He's punched people before. So do you go Rasheed Wallace or do you go the CJ Parker route? And with that whole analogy, when he became Juice Robinson in New Japan, he tweaked his look a little bit, but he still has the dreadlocks and everything else, or he did, then, and he still had some of the, the nomadish look and the all organic vegetarian look, but he also wrestled some great matches and cut promos showing you he's out there to wrestle and fight. He's not out there to hug a tree and fly a kite and plant a flower. So they've mixed their signals. It's like saying you knew a truck driver once whose favorite color was blue, so every truck driver must like the color blue. Not every person who smokes marijuana is peaceful and wants to, just get baked, eat brownies, and giggle at silly, stupid things. Mm-hmm. It's become closed-minded stereotype. Closed-minded stereotypical booking and character portrayal.
Exactly, and I don't know. Here's the problem. And I'll finish on this, is that Vince McMahon, when he sees just an inkling, a seed, a grain of rice amount of comedy in somebody, even if it's nothing, even if it's not good, Vince will take that and he will magnify it to an intolerable level. He's done that with Otis recently, which we saw how that's turned out. Yes. He's done it with Matt Riddle. He's taken a guy Titus O'Neil. Titus World Slide is still one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Titus World Slide it's one of those, you're having a bad day, a really crappy day, go just YouTube Titus World Slide. It is awesome. And hearing Corey Graves laugh hysterically, legitimately makes me, it's one of the funniest moments in WWE, hands down. Of course it wasn't meant to be. But when Vince sees somebody with just a little bit of comedy, more often than not, the comedy is not good because comedy is very difficult, and it's even more difficult with people that are not meant to be comedians. They're meant to be simulated sports performers, and then you try to ingrain the comedy in them and then make it more of a comedy character and then have it translate on air and hope that it reaches a mass audience. It is not easy to do, and I don't know why Vince feels that if he sees just a little something, he needs to make it blow up. And that's what he's done with Matt Riddle. Again, Otis is another example too, as I said, and among others. It's just, that's the problem. If I was employed by WWE and I didn't want to be taken, and I wanted to be taken seriously, I would never show any comedic side of myself. Right? Like, I wouldn't do it because Vince would take it and go, he's our comedic relief every week now. And you'd be, that's what happens. So that's what I think he's a bit of a victim of. And yes, he had this personality to some degree in NXT. I understand that, but it's kind of morphed into Vince's version of it, and it's not a good one. So.
Oh, he takes anybody who has any kind of comedic aspect, and instead of blowing it up, he turns it into exploitation. And he exploits what he thinks is funny into becoming somebody's Achilles heel, their complete weakness, destroys their character credibility, and by the time he's done, nobody wants to work with him inside the ring in any kind of main event or any kind of mid-card or above tier, let alone once they're out of the company, they're worth nothing. What's Santino Marella doing these days? I know he stepped away to retire, so on and so forth, but he could come back. They've talked about how he's healthy enough. But do you think he'd ever be cast in any other wrestling association, federation, or anything as a top tier or anything above a comic act? Not at all. Not at all.
Nope.
So
No, I agree, and it's just I don't mind comedy. I'm not saying comedy should never be on a wrestling show. I'm just saying it's not easy to produce because comedy is by nature better when it's organic. But so that means you can't script it. It just kind of has to happen, or you stumble upon it. Like R-Truth is one of the very few that I don't mind when they put him on TV because R-Truth has that knack for not everything he does is funny, but at least some of the stuff he does doesn't make me want to, put this pen I have in my hand in my eye. Like I you know what I mean? Like R-Truth at least is tolerable with the comedy, and he's decent at comedy, which is a very rare trait as a wrestler. So, Mr. Gardner, Michael, it has been a pleasure. But as always, first of all, if there's anything else you wanted to chat about, but secondly, shout outs if you want to give those as well.
I'll throw out my shout-outs first, and then I will recap what little bit of notes I had. The shout-outs go out to all Twitter followers I have out there, Teflon Dave, Tony CIA, the Blues Girl, and the Utility Players, which is a nice new sports podcast. All these have become recent followers, and they really love the show. And I've chat back and forth with some of the folks, and they just love what we do here. And so I just wanted to let them know that we recognize them as listeners, and especially like with the Utility Players. If you guys are looking to try something new, at the Utility Players on Twitter, and go ahead and listen to their shows. Aside from that, what I'm going to talk about real quick, and I'll make it as brief as possible. So Sheamus versus McIntyre.
Right. Yes.
The only thing I'm going to say is that was a really sloppy Claymore at the end. I'm glad this program's over. I'm surprised next to Sheamus's name instead of 4 times champion, it didn't say 4-time transitional champion. The opening segment between all of them and The Miz and all that was way too long. Just to get in the ring and actually have the match took way too long. But the match itself wasn't until the last couple minutes that it was actually entertaining. I don't want to see both of them doing white noise to each other. And then both of them doing Sheamus's. I noticed they both did Sheamus's white noise. They both did Sheamus's chest beating. Calling the Bowery, whatever they call it.
10 beats of the Bowery. Like I don't even know what that is. I'm not a fan of that move anyway. But anyway, yeah.
It's just a Sheamus spot. The point is they're doing. McIntyre was mimicking a lot of his moves, and I know that they came up together and whatever else. Hopefully this is over. They could both go on to other things. McIntyre can either get back into the world title hunt, or I would like to see him in a meaningful phase, or a meaningful new feud phasing towards WrestleMania and Fastlane. Hopefully, I'm not saying it has to be brand new, but just something with a little bit more feet underneath it, because we did have feet with the Sheamus thing. It just, will he turn, will he not turn, drug on too long. We don't know where Keith Lee is. Maybe a marquee match between McIntyre and Keith Lee could be in the works for WrestleMania. Maybe Keith Lee and Braun Strowman. We don't know. So there's something out there. There's a couple people that they don't have on TV that maybe Aleister Black could come back. There are a few tangibles that we haven't touched on because they're trying to make us forget, but we're still smart enough. Hey, Andrade could pop up. We don't know. Okay.
That's true.
This stuff we have to look at. There are a few names that they could theoretically try to surprise us with, and if presented right, it could work out. You got to remember, Andrade was the guy to take the NXT title off of Drew McIntyre, so you can build upon that, which they've touched upon it in the past before, but this time you have to make Andrade credible, and that doesn't mean 3 Raw wins and 1 Fastlane win. It has to be more than that. You have to have him go over some top-tier talent, something to elevate him into the McIntyre world. Okay. I just noticed that Braun Strowman said this sucks a lot, that sucks a lot. He said that, Elimination Chamber sucked and Braun Strowman should have been there. Well, first of all, you don't need Braun Strowman's permission and or help for Elimination Chamber to suck. It did it all on its own, but thank you for pointing it out there, buddy. And I don't know if that sucks, this sucks, or everything else sucking is going to be his new tagline. He just happens to really overemphasize the word sucks. Sucks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, going through other stuff. I'm wondering if MVP is pulling a Macho Man Randy Savage. You notice in the last couple of weeks his suits have been purple, his ties have been purple. Purple is a sign of royalty. I wonder if he's color coding just like Randy Savage used to when he would go into a match as a heel, but he would wear a white hat, and at the end he would turn babyface and so on as a babyface wearing a black hat and come out as a heel. I don't know if that's happening, if that's a subtle thing that we're supposed to pick up on or not, but it's funny that he's wearing purple, and purple's the color of royalty. And you also have Apollo Crews over on SmackDown claiming to be of royal descent. I don't know if that's all going to come together or not, but it would be funny if he was kind of color coding things as a reach out to the fans saying, hey, we're wearing purple because we're royalty now. We've become the real king of the ring. Just something to kind of look at and kind of pay attention to what people wear. Kind of like if you notice Miz, Morrison, and Drew McIntyre all have black wedding bands. I notice they're all pointing with their left hands. They all have black wedding bands on. That doesn't really mean much. It kind of seems to be the go-to thing for guys these days getting married. But there's just a little bit, I think, as far as the color coding with what MVP was wearing.
I thought, yeah. Well, I will say it's also National Women's Month, right? So, and I think that color is purple. I don't know what that means to him. Maybe it was just kind of a nod to the women. I don't know, but you're right. It could be royalty. You're right. I'm probably more of that, but it is also the color of this month's, like, you know, they have Black History Month. It's National Women's Month. You know, whatever April is and so forth. So I don't know. Thought.
Well, you know, I'm of course used to, like, you know, breast cancer awareness when you have the pink and things like that, but I didn't realize that it obviously this particular awareness isn't really celebrated by WWE, or we'd have everything purple.
Yeah, that's true. There's no video package. It's just yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if he's doing this on his own, that also shows you that he's probably a pretty good guy, and that could be a hint towards a babyface turn, because the Hurt Business has done nothing except for make good on every damn
How are they heels? I made that.
There is no way.
There's other than just we're told you're supposed to hate them, but we've got no reason why, right? So, yep.
Exactly. So these are just small things that I've kind of picked up on, and there was just one SmackDown thing that I've noticed over the last couple months. Like since the last time you had me on the show, remember when Rey Mysterio was talking about Baron Corbin, talking about how he had the Golden Gloves background, and they had to talk to one person? Yeah. We never did find out who that one person is. We never did. And I'm still wondering to this day, because you know what? WWE wants you to forget, but Pepperidge Farm remembers, and I'm Pepperidge Farm today.
Is that Family Guy joke? Yeah.
Yes, it is. Thank you for getting it. Now, I'm hoping somebody else at home was like, yeah, all right, cool.
Family Guy. God, I love that show.
And the last thing, I'm going to ask you, the listeners, for help on this one. First of all, we've been watching Raw and SmackDown faithfully. They've been doing all this stuff since the Dome has been put together. I haven't seen one sign in the background from anybody on the show saying WWEpodcast.com. So I want you, one of our listeners who gets to be on the show, put up a sign for that. That would help us out quite a bit with our listeners.
Or just put WWE, the WWE podcast, right? Like, or our website. Whoever I see do that, and I miss it. If I miss it, let me know. Email me at realwwepodcast@gmail.com. Show me your sign. Take a screenshot of it. And we'll get you on the show. I promise you. How about that? That's pretty damn cool. I like that little contest.
I just kind of thought about that. I was like, you know what? Because I one of my notes I had, and it was a sidebar off that, and I'll make it real brief, was that it kind of noticed into the second or third hour, it looked like the crowd had changed, like it was a different set of people. Now, I don't know if that was maybe they had pre-taped some stuff, and they can also, I mean, with digital boards, you can, I don't know how main events broadcast. I haven't watched a main event in forever, but you could have a different crowd for main event at a different price tier, because I don't know anybody who's been on the actual as part of the fans on the digital boards. So it could be taped at a different time, and it just kind of looked like some of the fans who were there had changed. It's something for us to kind of pay attention in the background, because then we could always figure out when there's a pre-taped segment, that and when you can see the commentary team in the background giving us commentary, but their mouths aren't moving at all.
I do watch that. I look for that too. Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
It's right up there with the piped in "This is awesome."
Oh God,
You know, it's like,
yeah.
yeah, but anyway, so that's what I had for Raw this week, and I just want to say thank you for having me on the show. It felt like it's been forever, and I miss all my listeners. And as always, you can find me at 144Captain on Twitter. I always look forward to having new followers and talking wrestling with everybody and anybody. I could talk it all day and all night. I have a penchant for it because I can plant that seed, and through it we'll garden some memories and some definite sound clips and some great conversations.
Absolutely. I mean, it is. It's one of those. I mean, we just talked for 2 hours about wrestling, and it feels like 10 minutes. It's crazy. I say that all the time. Wrestling is one of those topics. When you find another fan and they're passionate too, it's just like this bond that you have forever with that person. It's just the way it is. Wrestling's got it's special. It's different than like being a fan that you have friends that are fans of like Major League Baseball or the NFL, whatever. It's different because wrestling it's more niche. It's more emotional based than is most sports. So I'm with you there. But Michael, it's always good to have you on the show again. Go guys, follow him on Twitter at 144Captain if you want you'll give him some feedback, suggestions, or as you said, talk wrestling.
Absolutely, and thank you, like I said, once again for having me on the show. Always humbled and always proud to represent. Absolutely,
appreciate it. And it's WrestleMania season, so you'll be back on soon. I have a feeling.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
All right, good night.